Christmas Eve shimmered with a kind of magic that only the season could bring. The world outside seemed painted in sparkling lights and icy stillness, while inside the warmth of the holidays wrapped itself around us. At 7 or 8 years old, I lived for the wonder of it all, waiting for presents, imagining Santa's sleigh cutting through the night sky, but I was also beginning to notice the little complexities that came with growing up. This Christmas was unlike any other. My dad had a new girlfriend, Emily, and for the first time she was joining us for the holiday. It wasn't uncomfortable, just different. My mom had passed away when I was very young, and the house had been ours, just my dad, my siblings, and me for as long as I could remember. Now Emily's presence brought a shift, subtle but noticeable. She wasn't like my mom, but there was something undeniably kind about her. She had a quiet, gentle way of fitting in, always ready with a warm smile or a laugh that blended into the room without overpowering it. She made an effort to be part of our traditions, and even though it felt strange at first, I found myself comforted by the way she softened the edges of our usually chaotic household. It wasn't bad, just new. The evening had been filled with laughter and cheer, the kind that makes the holiday season special. My dad, Emily, my siblings, and I were all bundled up in blankets in the living room, the twinkling lights from the Christmas tree casting a warm glow over everything. The scent of cinnamon candles lingered in the air as we watched Elf, a family favorite that had become tradition. Emily laughed along with us at all the best parts, and for a while everything felt blissfully normal, like the perfect holiday moment. When the movie ended, my dad and Emily decided to call it a night. It wasn't unusual for them to head to bed early, leaving us kids to enjoy a little more time together. My brother, sister, and I decided to watch The Polar Express, another holiday classic. The gentle chug of the train and the rhythm of the story felt like a lullaby for Christmas Eve. By the time the credits rolled, the clock had crept past midnight. My eyes were heavy with sleep, but my curiosity kept tugging at me, pulling me toward the mysteries that seemed to hang in the air that night. Even though I was still a kid, I wasn't entirely naive. By that age, I'd started to have my doubts about Santa Claus. It wasn't that I wanted to stop believing, it was more that I'd started to notice things that didn't quite add up. Like how the handwriting on Santa's gift tags looked suspiciously like my dad's, or how the presents always seemed to appear after we'd gone to bed. That night, my curiosity got the better of me. I decided that this would be the year I'd find out the truth once and for all. If Santa was real, I'd see him with my own eyes, and if he wasn't, well, at least I'd have my answer. My bedroom was tucked away on the lower level of the house, while the living room and the towering Christmas tree were just a few steps up on the main floor. The house was silent now, except for the faint hum of the heater and the occasional creak of the walls adjusting to the cold. Slowly, I pushed open my bedroom door and tiptoed up the stairs, my heart pounding in my chest with a mix of excitement and nervousness. The glow of the Christmas tree lights spilled softly into the dark hallway, casting shimmering reflections on the walls. As I crept closer to the living room, I froze. The presents were already placed beneath the tree, neatly wrapped in shiny paper with big bows. For a moment, I felt a pang of disappointment, thinking I'd missed the chance to catch Santa or my dad putting them there. But then I saw her. Emily was crouched under the tree, her back to me, her hands moving quickly over something I couldn't quite make out. At first, I thought she was just putting the gifts under the tree, confirming my suspicions that Santa wasn't real. But then I saw her shaking the gifts, examining them. She wasn't placing them under the tree, she was trying to figure out what was inside. I froze in place, every muscle in my body tense as I watched Emily under the glow of the Christmas tree. She didn't notice me, her attention was completely focused on the gifts beneath the branches. She reached for a gift bag that I immediately recognized as one meant for my sister. It was decorated with shiny gold paper and a tag that had my sister's name scribbled in my dad's handwriting. Emily carefully dug inside the bag, her movements deliberate but oddly casual. She pulled out a makeup kit, holding it up to inspect it under the soft glow of the tree lights. For a moment, she just stood there, examining the box, as if trying to decide something about it. Then, just as calmly as she'd taken it out, she slipped the kit back into the bag and adjusted the tissue paper to make it look untouched. The whole thing was so strange. I couldn't make sense of it, but I also couldn't look away. My heart thudded in my chest, a mix of curiosity and unease keeping me rooted to the spot. Then, as if nothing had happened, Emily straightened up and walked toward the kitchen. I stayed perfectly still, my breath shallow as I followed her with my eyes. She moved with purpose, heading straight to the small ledge above the counter where my dad always kept his wallet. It was his usual spot for loose change, receipts, and whatever cash he carried. I watched, my confusion growing, as she reached up and grabbed the wallet without hesitation. She opened it quickly, flipping through the contents like she knew exactly what she was looking for. My stomach dropped as I saw her fingers pluck out a few bills. She folded them neatly and slipped them into the pocket of her pajama pants, all in one smooth motion. My mind raced, struggling to process what I was seeing. Why was she taking money from my dad? Was she planning to pay him back? Did he know about this? Questions buzzed in my head, but none of them made sense. It wasn't over, though. Emily moved again, this time heading toward the hallway where the bathroom was. I crept forward just enough to see her open the medicine cabinet, the small creak of the door cutting through the silent house. My dad always kept his prescription medication there, along with a few over-the-counter bottles. Emily reached for one of the bottles, twisting the lid off with practiced ease. She sniffed it cautiously, her nose crinkling, as she examined the contents. I held my breath, my body rigid with anxiety. For a brief moment I was certain she was going to take something, but instead she just stood there, the open bottle in her hand, glancing over her shoulder as if to make sure no one was watching. And that's when it happened. Our eyes met. Her face went pale, and her eyes widened as she realized I had been watching. She quickly put the bottle back in the cabinet and stood there, staring at me in silence for a few seconds. I was too scared to move, but somehow I managed to slip back downstairs to my room and crawl into bed, pretending to be asleep, my heart pounding in my chest. The seconds felt like hours, but eventually I heard the door creak open and then close again. I didn't dare look, but I wasn't sure if Emily had come into the room. Minutes passed before I felt it was safe to look around. I cautiously glanced up, and there she was standing over my bed, her figure silhouetted against the dim light from the hallway. I froze, my blood running cold. She whispered in a quiet, angry voice, "I saw you watching. I wasn't doing anything wrong. I just wanted to make sure your dad was taking his medication." I couldn't believe what I was hearing as Emily tried to explain herself, but I wasn't buying it. She then whispered, "Merry Christmas," before leaving my room. The next morning, after we opened our presents, my dad stormed into the living room, angry and demanding. "Who took $60 out of my wallet?" I glanced at Emily, and she looked back at me with guilty eyes. I knew it was her, but I stayed quiet, not wanting to escalate things further. As my dad continued questioning everyone, I couldn't keep quiet any longer. I told him everything, how Emily had been sneaking around, going through his wallet, and even tampering with his medication. At first, he looked at me with disbelief, but when I mentioned the pills, his expression shifted. Something in my words struck a nerve, and he realized I wasn't making it up. That night, the house erupted in tension. My dad confronted Emily, and their argument echoed through the walls. She denied at all taking the money, touching his medication, or sneaking around, and even accused me of fabricating the whole story. My dad didn't know what to believe, and he didn't ask her to leave. The uneasiness settled in my chest like a weight. I locked my bedroom door that night, trying to feel safe, but hours later, I heard the faint rattle of my doorknob. Someone was testing the lock. My heart pounded as I lay frozen in my bed, straining to hear. The sound stopped, but the fear didn't. The next morning, I asked my dad if he had tried to come into my room. When he said no, I knew it had to be Emily. Terrified, I begged him to end things with her, and to my relief, he listened. A few days later, she was gone. That Christmas Eve, meant to be filled with joy, left me with a memory of fear instead. Even years later, the unease of that night lingers, a dark shadow over what should have been a magical time.